Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the From Adversity to Abundance podcast. I'm your host, JB Bateman, and I'm really excited today. We've got a special guest, Beth Boisseau-Coots. Hopefully I said that right, Beth. How are you?
Good. I'm good. How are you?
Good. So we caught Beth off guard a little bit. She wasn't 100% sure what we were going to talk about today. So this is going to be very real and very raw, potentially, depending on where we go with it. But Beth, I just want to thank you for coming on. I really appreciate it.
It's my pleasure.
Beth, you work, you're with JB Lloyd, and we've worked together a little bit through my mortgage note investing, and we get forced place insurance or lender placed insurance, different insurance products through you. And I know you all do a lot of other types of insurance products, but I'll let you speak for yourself. Who are you and what do you have going on today?
Well, you did very well on my name, and thank you for having me. My name is Beth Boisseau-Coots, and I am an insurance producer, broker. I specialize in insurance programs for community banks as well as real estate investors. Today, I have this going on, and as usual, we tend to deal with a lot of lenders and their requirements, and just, always juggling. I told somebody recently that I felt like I was double Dutch jump roping on a unicycle while juggling fire, I think is the way I put it.
Wow.
But that was pretty descriptive for that moment.
Pretty accurate.
So been busy, which is good. It's a good thing.
Now we're going to jump back into your backstory, obviously, but before we do, so you've been in the insurance industry for how long?
16 years, a little over 16 years.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I started.
Is it a family thing?
Yes. My dad started JB Lloyd in 1988, and then we sold. He still is involved, but we sold to another company in 2016. Got
it. Okay. So yeah, for the listeners out there, Beth is kind of my go-to, even if it's not a property that I have through insurance through JB Lloyd on, I'll still, Beth, you're the first person I call when I have a question. So I definitely recommend the listeners look up JB Lloyd or reach out to Beth. We can talk later how they can do that. But so from adversity to abundance, you weren't totally sure what we were going to get into. We're still not 100% sure what we're going to get into, but you obviously, like everyone, still have problems today, still have challenges today, like you just alluded to, at least on the business side of things. So certainly it's not all rainbows and unicorns and butterflies, blah, blah, blah. But it seems from the outside, you have an abundant life and an abundant mindset currently, but it wasn't always that way. So what we want to do is get into your backstory, and you can pick it up wherever you want to start. But focusing on some of the adversity that you've been through on a personal level, could be business related, could be relationship related. And you were starting to get into that before I hit record, and I said, you know what, let's just hit record. So why don't you start where you'd like to, and we can go from there.
Sure. So, I am very grateful every day for the, abundance that we have in life and the comfort that we've achieved. It was not always this way. I currently have 4 children. 3 of them are adults and 1 is 11. And people often laugh at that. They say, don't you know how that happens? Well, my first one, I like to say I was the young mom and now I'm the old mom, because my first child was born when I was 17.
Okay.
Which, that really kind of turned things upside down in my house. But I was a strong-willed 17-year-old, and I was gonna have that baby, and I was going to raise him, and I was going to be good at it, and I was not gonna be a welfare mom, and that was that.
So curious, and I hate to cut you off, but we just had Shantae Duffy's episode came out today, actually, and she had an unexpected pregnancy as well. I think it was 18 or 19. And she talked on the episode about how, she went through a range of emotions and a range of kind of thoughts as to, whether she was going to put her child up for adoption or anything like that. And obviously, for many reasons, I can't fully relate to what you or Shantae went through, but I'm just curious, you said there was no question about it in your mind as far as you raising the child?
Nope.
Okay.
I wasn't quite sure how I was going to do it. I just knew that I was going to do it. And so, I made that choice, and my parents said, well, you're creative. Let's go to beauty school. So off I went. I went to beauty school, and that was fine. I enjoyed that, and it was good for a time. It was a lot of work. I worked in some of the higher end salons and did an apprenticeship. 2 years after Nick was born, my dad started the business. So that was, a very dry time. There wasn't a lot of extra. And, we were used to being able to shop and do all these things when he was, had the comfortable company job. So then there was a period of it being very lean. And then I married at 24, and that was fine, and had 2 more children, and divorced him when, they were, oh my gosh, 17, 10, and 8. And then sadly, he passed away about 3 years later. So we, had to go through that, and that was rough. But through all of this, and I went from hairdressing to an art career of all things, and I was busy with that too, and I really enjoyed it. I was married, so I wasn't at that time, and I'm married again, but at that time I was married and not the sole breadwinner. So I was able to have a thriving art business and design business, and that was a lot of fun. But after I got divorced, I decided I wanted something a little more substantial that didn't require so much work on my part, because it was 24/7, and it was always, I was paid per project. So, and I didn't have benefits. So I was actually blessed, because I had told some friends, hey, I'm looking for something new to do. A friend of mine said, my husband thinks you should go into pharmaceutical sales. He was a physician. And I thought, well, that's an interesting thought. So I called a friend of mine who was in pharmaceutical sales, and I told her what my other friend had said. And she said, Beth, do you have any experience in sales? And I said, no, I do not. And she said, okay, do you have your college degree? And I said, no, I don't have that either. And she said, well, good luck. This was right after I'd gotten divorced. And I said,
wow.
Okay.
Thanks.
So anyway, a few months go by, and I, in the interim, it was just one of those times, I just had a lot of faith, and I was able to get a little job as a receptionist. My daughter was a high-level gymnast, so I became a receptionist at the gym, and I worked exactly enough hours to get insurance, but I also had enough hours I could still do painting projects. So I'm like, okay, this is good. And it was funny. I was so incredibly grateful for that job.
So at this point, you had gotten divorced, just so I'm
just gotten divorced. Yes.
And you had the 3 kids yourself?
I had the 3 kids.
And you didn't have health insurance for them?
Well, I did once I got that job at the gym. Right.
Got it.
So I'd just gotten divorced. So it was the summer of 2004, and started dating my current husband during that same time. It was kind of an interesting time. But at the end of that month of working at the gym, I got a call from the gal that had told me, that I was basically up a creek with looking for a job in sales. And she said to me, Beth, I have been hired as the district manager for a new energy company in Texas, and I need a sales staff. And I said, well, I don't think I know of anyone, but I'll let you know if I can think of anybody. And she said, well, Beth, would you be interested? And I said, well, but Gwen, I don't have a degree and I don't have any sales experience. And she said, well, Beth, do you have a resume? And I said, no. And so she said, well, come over Sunday. So I did, and we cobbled together what was probably the worst resume in the history of all time. But it got me this job, which, it doesn't sound like a lot now, but in 2004 for me, it paid me $50,000 a year and really good benefits plus generous commission structure.
Nice.
Yes.
So what had changed? I'm curious, like, why did I know her position
I think
changed.
she was desperate.
Okay. She must have been, right? No,
I think,
I'm kidding.
yeah, I do. I think she was desperate. So the first week at that job, I was just like on cloud 9. I was like, whoa, I'm in the money now,
Right. Well,
which is funny now.
Yeah.
But
right. It's all relative, right?
It's all relative.
Because now you're making 52,000, you said? No,
yeah,
I'm kidding.
I know.
I'm
rolling.
just joking.
I'm a high roller.
But seriously, so you were for a month, you worked the receptionist job, right?
And I was
You
at
said
$10 an hour.
$10 an hour. Okay. But you had
37.5 hours a week.
to get the health insurance, right?
Yep.
Got it. And then you did that for a month or two.
I did for exactly 1 month.
Okay. And then, so, I mean, a $50,000, I mean, that is a huge jump.
Well, and then the commission structure was also very good. So, I had the potential of earning, 6 figures immediately, really, or pretty immediately.
Mm-hmm.
But it was funny because after the first week, I had this inspiration that, oh my God, they hired a fake and they're going to figure it out.
Right.
And so I went to Barnes and Noble and I bought all the books on sales I could find. And, I've read about a chapter of each one. And then I started going door to door because it was all commercial energy. I knew the area I lived in very well. So I just started on a corner at an intersection. I started going door to door to businesses because it was fear, Jamie. It was absolute fear driving me. But
they were going to find you out that you didn't know.
They were going to find me out. Yeah. We have hired a fraud.
Well, I've heard a lot of successful salespeople and successful entrepreneurs and business people in general who have started out with door-to-door sales, whether residential, commercial, because at the end of the day, books are fine. They're great. And honestly, podcasts are great, but you're not going to learn how to sell insurance through a podcast or how to sell, commercial energy through a book. You're going to learn it by doing it. So,
yeah,
I mean, you
that's exactly right.
Okay.
Well, it was, it's one of those things when you put something out there, you put this energy out there and you have this drive. It doesn't always come back to you in exactly the way you think it will, but it does come back to you. I know it sounds kind of woo-woo, but 6 weeks after my start date, I landed a big account that came to me from, it wasn't one of the doors I knocked on, although I did get business that way. It was just, I had talked to one of the parents at my daughter's gymnastics facility, and she said, oh, I work for this company. I'll get you in. Maybe they'd be interested. Well, she did, and they did, and I landed the account. And so mid-October, I was the top salesperson in the state of Texas. And I remained in that position until I left. I ended up being hired away, and which was fortunate because unbeknownst to me at the time, Hurricane Katrina had really wiped them out. So they were closing their doors. So I sort of avoided that pitfall. Got hired away. And then at that time, my dad came to me. He realized there was somebody in the family who had the ability to sell, and said, I really need you. That was a real fortunate happenstance because back in previous October, this was in March, previous October, it turned out my ex-husband had dysplasia in his throat. And my current husband, who we were dating at the time, they found cancer in his finger, and it was a sarcoma. It was very aggressive. And then my dad had prostate cancer.
Wow. This was all at the same time.
This was October of 2005. My ex-husband he had a very good prognosis. My current husband, his was dire. I mean, it was very rare, and there's like a 0% chance of survival. It was very aggressive. He's still alive, by the way. He did survive.
I'm very thankful for that. It's
Yeah.
not, it's interesting. I mean, you would think when you hear, oh, finger, that's no big deal. And then throat sounds more,
Yeah.
threatening.
But his was just pre-cancer. It was like a little pea-sized deal, and they removed it, and he was supposed to be fine, but he wasn't, and he didn't get better. And then around the same time my dad hired me away, he was on disability, and they were doing radiation, and he could only speak 6 whispered sentences a day, and he had his own business, so he had it was just, we had to rescind the child support agreement and do all these things, and I needed to be at home. That was really the bottom line. So I ended up taking a pay cut so that I could go work for the family business, but be at home all the time, because I still had young kids. And then, so that's what I did. And it was hard. We were a small business, and, my dad was busy, and I was the only salesperson, and I had to figure out insurance, and that was no easy feat.
No small task. Yeah. I heard somebody talking yesterday on a podcast actually about small business, and how in the beginning, I mean, I can relate to this too, but it's just, you're essentially doing everything. You're learning the business, you're working in the business. Hopefully you're working on the business. And then once in a while, you're working on yourself outside of either of those angles, meaning, making your own growth or your own health and your own personal stuff. So it's a lot to juggle. Any entrepreneur can relate to that. So, and you didn't know insurance at that point, right?
No, I did not. So yeah, that was my, illustrious beginning into this business.
That's a lot.
And sadly, my ex did not get better, and he ended up passing away July 5th, 2007. So it was 3 years after our divorce. But we were talking before this, and one thing we were discussing is that vehicles are really important when you have a dream to go from point A to point B. But the fuel of that vehicle, really what makes it go, what makes it run, is the dream and the vision. And I have to say that is really what made all the difference. Because even when insurance in this role was not, it took me back. I had to take a step back, from a income perspective. I knew that it had a lot of potential, and I had a passion for the people.
Yeah.
So
just to be clear, the vehicle is the insurance in this.
The insurance, exactly. Or in your case, it would be note investing.
Right. Yeah.
But the fuel of the vehicle is the dream and the vision that you keep in front of you all the time, and you continue to focus on that. And because sometimes it's hard, sometimes there are learning curves, sometimes there are other obstacles. In my world, it would be okay, I've got this risk and I can't find a carrier for it, or the underwriters are being difficult, or just any number of things. But gets you through that is the vision.
Right. So you didn't want to be in insurance when you were 8 years old? That wasn't your dream?
Well, no, it didn't sound very fun. I had a dad who did that, but I didn't know. It doesn't sound fun. It sounds like cardboard, but it's interesting, actually.
I think you've told me before that if you're at a party and you don't want to talk to people, you just start talking about insurance, and then
it works
somehow all of a sudden you're all by yourself.
Yes. And people do not. It was funny when I first got into it. I noticed such a difference, because when I had been an artist, people were so interested in that. Like they would just, that was like so intriguing to them. But insurance did not have the same effect. And I had thought it was me. It is not me.
So that gets to an interesting question that I don't know if, I think it always depends on your situation, but people debate, should you follow your passion or should you kind of follow the money? You know, and of course it's not black and white, and there can be crossover there, but what would you say to somebody a little bit younger than you that's trying to figure out their path? You know, should you, it sounds like you followed your passion, and maybe that didn't lead you to too much money. And you tell me, I mean, you know, what would you take away from that?
Well, I think it all really all goes back to a person's vision and how they see their life and what they want their life to be.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, that with that disclaimer, I think that it's when you follow your passion, it has the potential to really spoil that for you.
Mm. Yeah, that's a good
And
point.
you have to be careful with that.
Sure.
With art, I didn't want to do it for a very long time. And it was because I had, you know, really burnt out on it. With insurance, definitely did not start out being my passion,
Mm-hmm.
but it's always interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoy it, and I never know it all. There's always a challenge. There's always something to learn. With
Yeah.
art, I was at the top of my game. I was always in demand. I was always busy.
Mm-hmm.
There was no more challenges really.
Mm. Yeah.
So I would say find something you like that challenges you, but
Mhm.
isn't necessarily your passion, because your passion can change. And
Right.
the other thing is, if you want it to remain your passion, you might
Yeah.
as well. The way I look at it, I will have time to paint all day eventually
Mm-hmm.
when I retire.
Right. Sure.
So
Yeah. Makes a lot of sense. You know, I think it's fine to do something you enjoy, but like you made a lot of good points there. Your passions can change, and you might end up kind of ruining your passion if you make it your whole life, and you're trying to squeeze more out of it than is there financially maybe. And you also got to the point of the growth mindset, and, you know, in insurance, there's always something to learn, and more to do there. But yeah, I think I used to think, yeah, follow your passion. And now I think, I don't know. I think if everyone's different, but if you do something where you do kind of follow the money and really try to, when I say follow the money, I mean, you're really solving problems for people. You end up potentially enjoying that. And that kind of can become more of a passion that you didn't see coming. Just my 2 cents.
no, I agree. I mean, really, kind of to drill down, it's about serving others too.
Yep.
And if it were just about money or just about getting ahead, or, you know, and there wasn't the human element, you know, you feel like you're serving people, then it would be hollow, it would be shallow, it would mean nothing.
Yeah. So, I mean, you definitely hit on a good amount of adversity there. And again, in this show, Adversity to Abundance, we don't want to make it sound like, oh, Beth's life was 30 years of adversity and then all abundance. It's not like that. But what would you say, kind of mindset wise? You've already touched on some of this, but what kind of got you through that adversity? You know, how would you characterize your mindset going through those troubles?
Well, I have a strong faith, and I always trusted that there was more, and I was being led. I never doubted that for a moment. And I did find that, you know, when I did exert my own will, and you know, this is the worldview, the world's logic of how I should do this or how I should proceed,
Mm-hmm.
it never worked out as well as when I just
Mm-hmm.
trusted that little voice that was
Mm-hmm.
guiding me.
Yeah.
So I always felt like the times that were more difficult, I felt like they were for a greater good and purpose, and that we would get through them. And
That's good.
it's funny we're talking about this, because I was just talking to my daughter the other day, and she's married, but she lives in New Mexico. And I told her, we're talking about some of this on Mother's Day, and I told her that I'm so grateful, not only for where we are now, but for everything that led up to it.
Mm.
I feel like it was God's will, because everything that led up to now set the foundation, it set the stage, and gave me the wisdom and the viewpoint, the insight to be the person I am now and to live the life that I've been blessed with.
Yeah, that's really good. I mean, yeah, I think it's, not to get too far, into the religion, but that's
Well, and whatever you call that higher power.
No, I mean, I agree with you. I mean, and I know there are, passages of the Bible that talk about that, as far as, seeing everything as a blessing, even things that are difficult to maybe celebrate in the moment.
Yes.
But, and in hindsight, or hopefully soon thereafter, you can see that everything, it sounds like you're getting to the point that everything happens for a reason, and you're part of something bigger. It's not all about Beth. I mean, no offense, but
but it's not. It's definitely not.
You said we are going to get through this. Go ahead.
Well, I heard it put this way, and I loved this. When you're in your life, it looks like the back of a tapestry. Everything's just a mess.
Yeah. I've heard that analogy.
But when you stand back, you see the full picture, and you see how everything works together, and how it's part of a bigger picture.
Yeah, that's really good. Okay, well, before I fire off some kind of rapid fire questions, is there anything else, any other lessons you want to take, or I guess give to the listeners that you've learned through, your journey from adversity to abundance?
Well, I think have a vision, trust, whichever higher power, calls to you, whatever you call your higher power. And I guess I could expound on a lot of different things here.
Yeah.
I like to live my life a certain way. I like to meditate. I like to pray. I like to exercise. I eat very healthy. I do not drink. I do not use any substances. I think, but these are just things that work for me.
Personal choices. Yep. Right. Gotcha. Okay. Well, that's good. Okay. I'm going to fire off some questions. You ready?
Okay. Yes, I think so.
As ready as you're going to be. What do people misunderstand about you?
The feedback I get from people, and I think this is so funny, but they're like, oh, I just didn't think we were going to be friends because, you're like you've got it together, and you're such a Barbie doll, and, you're always put together. I'm like, girl.
You have no idea.
Definitely not how I see it, but thanks. But yeah.
Got it.
That makes me laugh. So that's probably the biggest misunderstanding.
Okay. What's one of your biggest failures, and what did you learn from that? It can be business, personal. Doesn't have to be your biggest failure, just something that comes to mind that you did learn from.
Well, I'm trying to think of a good one.
All right, I'll ask a different one, and we might get to a similar answer. But if you could go back and give your 18-year-old self some advice, what would it be?
Oh my goodness, I would tell myself to finish college, which, just for your information, I have 1 year left of a double major and a minor. And eventually I may just do it for fun.
Okay.
I would tell myself to finish college, join the military.
Nice.
And, go probably more a traditional path. But I say this, and then I go back to, but everything works together. So,
right.
Yeah. I told that to my kids. So,
Yep. Got it. If you could have coffee with any historical figure, who would you choose?
Well, I really like Georgia O'Keeffe.
Okay.
She was an innovator and ahead of her time, and was very successful in a male-dominated business at a time where women were not.
Mm-hmm.
I loved her vision. I
Mm-hmm.
loved her aesthetic. So probably her.
Nice. That's good. If you had to write a book this year, what would you write about?
I would probably write it about my family growing up.
Okay. Nice. Okay. Well, we're laying the foundation with this episode a little bit
Oh
for
my
you.
goodness. Yeah. I probably won't watch it.
What's a challenge that you're facing in your business right now?
Managing the growth.
Okay. Can you speak to that a little bit? I mean, this is a business podcast.
Yes. Well, we've grown a lot, and
Mm-hmm.
we've been blessed with business and clients like you. And
Mm-hmm.
now we're challenged with, managing that growth and,
Mm-hmm.
and having the customer service that can attend to the needs that come with the growth. And we're getting there. So,
Yeah. So what does the business look like? Are you in like all 50 states, or, what does your business actually look like?
I
And what
am in all,
industries are you in? Go ahead. Sorry.
yeah, no, you're fine. I am in all 50 states. Again, our focus is really banks and real estate investors.
Mhm.
I'm probably more heavy on the real estate investors, and
Mhm.
I work both with agents and directly with my client, the insured. So with that, we have our note people. So we're doing forced plates. We have our fix and flippers. We have our tenant occupied folks. We have our multifamily people. We have our people who are focusing on mobile home parks. So there's just a, subset, within that category, there's quite a few different subcategories.
Yeah.
So
Got it.
just, and along with that, they all have lenders, and the lenders have needs. So it's just, it grows from there. And so we're just trying to meet the challenges that come with it. And we've made some progress recently. So I've been happy. But
Nice.
it was kind of frustrating for a minute there.
Is that through hiring people or systems or both?
Both
Yeah.
hiring people and systems,
Right.
where we're redirecting some of the workflow off some employees and having multiple employees handle the incoming requests, things like that.
Got it. Okay. What is the most important personality trait, or an important personality trait for someone to be successful in the insurance industry?
Well, I think in the insurance industry, you have to have an eye for detail.
Yeah.
And you also have to have a heart for people. So, but in any industry, I really think just having, not to sound corny, but love for your, fellow humans is really the most important thing.
Yeah.
You have to treat others the way you want to be treated, and love thy neighbor as you love yourself.
Yeah, that's good. What's one question you wish I'd asked, but I didn't ask?
Oh my gosh. I don't know. I've been taken off guard by probably all of them. But I will speak to your earlier question about my biggest failure. And
Okay.
I think that is probably not finishing college, even though it had my college, I had a 4.0 and I was going back, but and really loving it. But I made a choice, and decided, because of my family and my responsibility to my family, to really, really focus on my job instead of spreading myself so thin. And that was in 2010. So that was probably my biggest, I don't know if failure is the right word, but regret. I don't regret it, I guess, but if I could change anything, I would have finished.
Okay.
I know I made the right choice at the time.
Sure. I might have to tweak the question going forward.
Well, I don't know. I could probably tweak my answer, but anyway.
No, that's good. All right. And we're about to wrap up, but what occupation other than your own would you like to try if money wasn't a part of it, if you didn't have a small business to run, and let's say you went and finished college, what occupation would you like to try?
So that's interesting because honestly, I don't want to try any other occupation. I
Okay.
want to continue to expand what I'm doing, buy businesses, build other businesses, have, other ancillary things I'm doing in addition to. So
Nice. Okay.
I really, really, really like what I do.
That's great. It
I
sounds
might
like
be a nutritionist though. My
on the
daughter
side.
is. So I
Okay.
live through her.
Got it. Your daughter's a nutritionist in New Mexico.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. Awesome. All right. Well, this has been really good. Everyone's story is different. But through these episodes that I've done so far, there've been some common threads, with kind of how people have been able to get through or around the adversity that they've had to deal with, whether it's, in some cases it's been self-inflicted, in other cases it's just something that happened to the person. And but I think in a lot of ways, even though your story is quite different than any that we've had so far, it's some common threads of serving others. There's a bigger kind of plan, or you're a part of something bigger than yourself, and also doing what you need to do at the time. This isn't probably exactly how you, like you said, it's not exactly how you would have envisioned your life turning out, but sounds like you and it looks like you have been very, very blessed. And would you have anything to add to that?
I really enjoyed this. I would say, to people who may be at a place in their life where they want to grow in a financial way or a success way, read lots of books. There are
Not just the first chapters of the
not
sales
just the
books.
first chapters. Yeah, that's been a theme though. Now that time period, I was really spazzy because I was like scared that I was going to be found out. So didn't have a lot of time for reading. And I was like, oh my gosh, what can I get from this? But over my life, I've read a ton of books, and I read a lot of people who've been successful, autobiographies, or if they've got a book that they've read, like, this is how I did it. I have a whole library of it. And, that's very helpful because you look at each one of those authors as a mentor. You have direct access to them and their wisdom. I mean, books are so invaluable.
Do you have a couple that come to mind? I'm sure you could recommend.
Oh my goodness. Yes. Think and Grow Rich, of course, is the preeminent one. And there was a new book that came out by, I think her name is Monica Main, where she modernized the language, but then she had, through a roundabout way, come upon the 13th chapter to the book that was not published with the original. And it's really, really good. Another one is, oh my gosh, Jeff Olson is the author, and I've read it like 20 times. Hold on. I will tell you if I can see it on my bookshelf. Oh, The Slight Edge.
Okay. I think I've heard of that.
It's simple. It's such a simple book, but it is just really, really good. So those are three rather, really,
that's good.
I highly recommend. But if somebody ever wants my book list, I'm happy to share it because I've got a whole bunch that I like.
Okay, cool. All right. Well, Beth, thank you very much. I know you are juggling a ton of things. As you already said, you're juggling fire on a unicycle or something like that.
No, but this is a great break. Thank you. Thank you for getting me away from all that.
Yeah, it's a nice little break, right? We're trying to, speak to the business owner and the investor and entrepreneur, but incorporate the human element. And I think this episode has certainly done that. you were faced with a ton of, again, adversity that you didn't expect, and handled it very well. And,
Thank you.
yeah, I mean, so I just want to thank you for coming on. How can our listeners reach out to you if they'd like to?
They can email me
Okay.
at eboisseau@lloyd-ins.com. And they can also text or call me at 972-342-4280.
Now, you just said, you already said you have too much growth now. And then what's JB Lloyd's website? Can they check that out?
www.lloyd-ins.com.
Awesome. So for the note investors and real estate investors, fix and flippers, buy and hold investors, I definitely recommend reaching out to Beth if you have any insurance needs or even just questions. You're always very responsive, and if you don't know the answer, you know where to find it. So,
right.
So yeah,
Thank
again,
you.
Beth, thank you very much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And to our listeners out there, please give us a 5-star rating and a quality review. And don't forget to share the episode with your friends and family. And we thank you very much for spending your most valuable resource with us, your time. Thanks, everyone. Take care.